Astrology, if we break it down to the roots of the word, means the study of the stars, pretty much identical to astronomy as far as the roots of the word. In Indian astrology, it's called Jyotish, which also means the science of the stars or the science of light, the study of light. Based on my observations, astrology is a study of synchronicity between cosmic space and local space at a certain point in time, or as objects in space move throughout time. Carl Jung came up with this word synchronicity in the 20th century, which he himself did not have a clear causal explanation for. And so there are many traditions in astrology that have causal theories and models and beliefs about planets causing behavior of humans and events on Earth, and even distant stars causing the behavior of humans. I am more agnostic to that idea. I'm open to it being possible in some way that might be discovered by science at some point. I do think there are subtle energies moving between all things in the universe. And I do think there very well could be cause and effect relationship elements between planets like even Pluto, a very tiny distant planet in our solar system, and what happens on Earth on a very physical, energetic level. I think that's entirely possible, especially if you consider there's not too much out there in space to really muddy the waters of what might be being emitted from planets like Pluto or Neptune or Uranus, let alone planets very close to us like Venus, Mars, and Mercury. And then I don't think anybody denies the influence of the sun. I can feel the warmth of it on my skin right now here in very hot, sunny Texas in the summer. And then the moon has its clear effects on the tides and physically on women and their monthly menstrual cycles that are centered around the lunar cycle. The sun is necessary to get vitamin D. So there are these very physical elements to the objects in the sky that are the biggest in relationship to us. So then the question extends to, are there more subtle influences from the sun and the moon and then all the other planets and stars? The constellations, as we humans have labeled these collections of stars? That's just an open question, I'd say, that astrology gives a way to play with, a way to experiment with, a way to... It provides a model of synchronicity that I view as halfway between the hard science of astronomy, of physical observations of where bodies in motion exist and how they're moving in the space of the galaxy and universe. I think it's halfway between that hard science of astronomy and the soft science of, I guess we could call it, divination. I think divination through means like tarot cards can be very effective and very insightful. And this is a mostly subjective phenomenon that cannot be experimented or duplicatable through scientific studies. I started this YouTube channel to share my passion and interest in the study of astrology and my growing observations and examinations of reality through the lens of astrology. I don't think reality exists in any particular objective way that can be understood by humans. Or speculating out a bit further, I don't think it's possible to perceive reality as it truly in any form, even if humans evolve or combine with AI and become infinitely more intelligent and capable of observing a subjective perspective on the universe and reality. It seems basically impossible for the true nature of reality to be seen as long as there is a separation of a seer. And this is an ancient Vedic concept and an ancient Zen Buddhist concept that I didn't come up with myself, but I did have very eye-opening experiences from reading the teachings of people like Ramana Maharshi in years past that have given me a very direct experience on that matter, that reality is not knowable by the mind, certainly not the human mind. And to the extent that it is knowable, it is just gosh darn glorious and beautiful. And it's like the light of the sun, but it's not like mental knowledge. Astrology is somewhere halfway in between these two things. It's halfway in between the light of where everything comes from and what it truly is in a very deep spiritual sense, and it's existing in our mundane world. In fact, when people look at horoscopes, or if you watch YouTube videos about monthly horoscope predictions based on planetary alignments, this is actually called mundane astrology. And so There's mundane astrology on one end of the spectrum. I would say personal astrology of individuals' lives would have to be included within mundane astrology. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you would have, maybe we could call it spiritual astrology or consciousness astrology. But my view on that is there really is no such thing, because the ultimate definition of spirituality and consciousness cannot be known by a mind, in my view. It can only be experienced, and even then, you can't even label the experience as having anything to do with its source of awareness and the light of consciousness and the spirituality that we all share. Me and you and the birds and the trees and the entire universe or multiverse and who knows what else. So this is a big zoomed out version of my personal perception of reality from a perspective of, you could say, non-duality or Advaita Vedanta. These are words people use for that, but I would just say it's reality as I feel it and perceive it. And if you want more information on that, I don't know if I'm going to talk too much about that topic of non-duality or Advaita Vedanta on this channel, although I might. I certainly am right now, at least for a minute or two. I do recommend the teachings and writings of Ramana Maharshi, because they were always the clearest to me on describing this, particularly the book Be As You Are, which was compiled by David Godman of Ramana's teachings in a very logical and cool way that I found very helpful. In the last year or so, I've just had this enormous hunger for the knowledge of astrology. I just fell deeply, madly in love with this, what I would call a lens to view reality through or to examine it through. I hold a very loose position on what the ultimate meaning of anything is, and I view astrology as a tool, and a lens, of course, is a tool to see things more clearly or in a different way. And so I view astrology as a tool and a lens to view reality underneath the surface, or things that are perhaps just out of focus. Things that might already be in the back of your mind or even in the forefront of your mind. But then when you see it reflected in an astrological chart, the confirmation of that can feel so many ways, but it can feel very relaxing in a funny way and also inspiring. Just like anything else in life that has power behind it, it can really hit you in different ways. It can relax you, it can inspire you. It might be totally uninteresting to you. And if that's the case, that's cool. It's certainly not for everyone. I view myself personally as a human that has a fairly even mix of yin and yang energy flowing through my body and mind and emotion. And so for me, this is one explanation of why I could say I personally love astrology so much, is because I could study some hard science of the tilt of the planet's axes and its relationship to the tilt of the galaxy, and where's the center of the galaxy, and what's the ecliptic plane. Astrology is filled to the brim with just wonderful astronomical and physics-based observations of the universe that are very objectively repeatable through scientific observation and experimentation. But then the divination aspect, or if I take it a little further, because divination isn't a word I personally like to use too much, I view it more as from a Jungian perspective, like of archetypes. Like Carl Jung came up with the concept of synchronicity. He also coined this word archetype. So we have archetypes, which are seen through mythologies of the Roman tradition and the Greek and the Indian tradition and the Mesopotamian and the Babylonian tradition. So these ancient archetypes of yin and yang energies expressed to various degrees are beautiful to me. And to view reality through the lens of those things, through a very grounded system, it's funny to think of it as grounded because it's all out in space, but it's very predictable. That's what's beautiful about astronomy, is that scientists can see with such incredible accuracy just how predictable the placements of planets and stars are, and even the chemical interactions going on at the core of distant stars. They can detect down to incredible degrees of accuracy. And the other side of astrology, the other half, is the intuited half that is coming more from a right brain or heart or superconscious perspective that has a conversation with the left brain side of things that is based more in these objective phenomena that are being observed about planets and stars and the Earth. So, in conclusion, astrology is a combination of both yin and yang energies It's a combination of the objective phenomena that are verified by repeatable experiments in science and the subjective interpretation of that phenomenon, which may have its own patterns that are recognized by the astrologer over time, but are always intuited in the moment. And in this way, astrology is not a hard science because every chart is going to be different. And every placement in Leo or in one of the houses of the chart is going to be similar. It will have a meaning because it's in that sign, because it's in that house. But when you look at it in the context of the larger chart, it's always going to be different. It's always going to be unique to that person or that event that is being looked at. At least this is my view. And what I find so exciting about astrology is that it has this emergent quality of revealing more about things and even more about itself over time to anyone who makes use of it as a tool for the examination of their own life, the lives of others, the life of the collective of humanity, as well as other things that have happened in time, events like movies and albums, which I am covering on this channel, among other things. So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button, and I will see you in the next video.